It's Monday, the 24th of October. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blanco Lirio channel. And we have yet another high-profile aviation accident when on Friday, the 21st of October, German fitness mogul Rainer Schaller and his family were lost when their chartered Piaggio P180 Avant 2 aircraft disappeared from radar contact 28 kilometers off the Puerto Limon airport off the Atlantic coast of Costa Rica. Here's what we know so far. First, let's start with this quick translation from Commander Arias of the Costa Rican Coast Guard with the help of my Jenny.
Bien, buenos días. El Ministerio de Seguridad Pública inició una operación de búsqueda y rescate en el Mar Caribe sobre el asunto de la alerta del avión.
So the Ministry of Public Safety initiated a search and rescue operation over the Caribbean looking for this airplane.
Puedo decir que a las 5 de la mañana inició la operación con aeronaves de vigilancia aérea y embarcaciones del Servicio Nacional de Guardacostas, y a las 5:50 de la mañana, a 28 kilómetros frente al aeropuerto de Limón en el mar, fueron localizados restos que aparentemente nos indican que es la aeronave.
So the search operation began around 5 a.m. with surveillance airplanes and the National Coast Guard Service, and at approximately 5:55 they found some debris that appears to be from this airplane.
And was there a distance in there? 28
yeah,
kilometers?
approximately 28 kilometers off the coast near the airport of Limon.
Is where they think they found this debris.
Yep.
Por el momento no tenemos localizados cuerpos con vida o sin vida de los posibles tripulantes. El puesto de mando del Ministerio de Seguridad Pública, en el cual hemos invitado a instituciones de rescate como Cruz Roja y bomberos, está operando desde las 5 de la mañana en el aeropuerto de Limón.
So they haven't found any bodies yet, dead or alive, of the people who would have been aboard the airplane. From about 5 a.m., they have both the Red Cross and the firefighters operating out of the airport at Limon.
Very good. Thanks, Jenny. Since that recording, they have recovered some bodies, so they are now claiming 6 fatalities total, 5 passengers, and 1 pilot, believed to be 66 years old. This aircraft departed Palenque Airport, Mexico, about 4:24 in the afternoon, Friday afternoon, for a 2-hour and 20-minute flight to Limon Airport in Costa Rica. Radar contact was lost off the Atlantic coast of Costa Rica right about here. Preliminary ADS-B data from Flight Radar 24 indicates a normal flight at 33,000 feet altitude and upwards of 333 knots of ground speed, and then a descent starts somewhere near Managua and indicates a normal rate of descent all the way down to about 14,000 feet, and then out over the coast of Costa Rica, a steeper rate of descent upwards of 3,000 feet per minute with a ground speed of 292 knots, steady rate of descent with only right here at the very last bit, 2,000 to 3,000 feet per minute, steady speed, and down here at only 725 feet, there appears to be an attempt to pull up the aircraft. They pop it back up to 1,100 feet, and then the rate of descent continues until the data ends. Upwards of 4,000 foot per minute rate of descent. The Piaggio P180 is a very distinctive, unique design aircraft built and designed in Italy, and I believe this is the first fatal accident of this aircraft design ever. Let's talk about some of the unique features of this design. It's a twin turboprop pusher aircraft. It uses the Pratt & Whitney PT6 turboprop engines and a pusher design off of the wings. At first glance, you might look at this aircraft and say, well, it's a canard design aircraft. Well, this forward wing, as they call it at Piaggio, is not necessarily a canard because there is no elevator control surface on this forward wing. This aircraft has a conventional horizontal stabilizer, trimmable horizontal stabilizer, and a conventional elevator, T-tail elevator, well above the wing to avoid any disruption of the airflow at high angles of attack. What this leading edge wing does on the Piaggio, it has a pair of small flaps, articulating flaps on the trailing edge of this wing that move with the flaps, the wing flaps. The wing itself is a very high aspect ratio, high wing loading wing. In other words, it's a long, skinny wing. That allows them to mount the PT6 engines outboard and aft, making for a quiet, roomy cockpit configuration. In fact, this whole shape of this fuselage is a lifting body shape. So with that, they get a great high-speed cruise characteristics out of this aircraft, approaching jet speeds with turboprop fuel efficiency. And in order to get in and out of their shorter airstrips, this thing's able to operate out of about 4,000-foot airstrips. They have a tremendous set of flaps on the trailing edge of the wings, and those flaps are assisted with these smaller flaps on the forward wing that, as you deploy the flaps, these trim tabs come down on the forward wing, and it minimizes the amount of pitch angle change as you deploy the flaps. So all the pilot reviews that I've seen on this aircraft, the pilot raves about it, raves about this design, the flying characteristics. It's just a fantastic flying airplane. One of the other unique characteristics about the airplane, if you've ever seen one of these fly over before, you'll never forget it by the sound that it makes because of this pusher design. Here's a good example of it. You hear that buzzing noise of the twin pusher turboprops. Very unique sound to this aircraft. But the pilot reports indicate that it's very quiet inside the cabin. Another one of the interesting canard-like features of this design is that this forward wing has a greater angle of incidence than the main wing, so that in the event that you get to a high angle of attack on the main wing, this forward wing will stall first, dropping the nose and thus aiding you in recovery of the aircraft from its stalled condition. And from looking at this ADS-B data of this accident, this aircraft was not in a stalled condition. Though this aircraft first flew around 1986, there have been about 200 of these aircraft produced and are flying around the world today, and it appears to have an excellent safety record. There's 27 incidents here on the Aviation Safety Network, 0 fatalities until this most recent crash. Most of these incidents are very minor incidents, loss of control of the aircraft on landing induced by pilots, or pilots overrunning runways, or aircraft being damaged in storms. Looking at the radar data, one of the concerns of investigators are going to be, was there a loss of pitch control of this aircraft? Though looking at the rate of descent in that data, it doesn't look like there was a catastrophic airframe failure of this aircraft. Out of all these prior accidents, there's only one right here on 28 July of 2012 that investigators might want to take a closer look at. And this was the result of a failed mechanics effort to comply with an airworthiness directive. That's something else investigators are going to want to look at. Back in 2010, an airworthiness directive came out on the Piaggio regarding corrosion detected in the interface between the elevator hinge fittings, metallic, and the horizontal stabilizer, carbon fiber. Investigation identified the cause in galvanic corrosion between dissimilar materials. Now, this AD is over 12 years old and should have long been complied with, and is probably not a factor in this accident. But this AD required at the time for removal of the elevators and inspection of the elevator fittings, replacement of the fittings as needed, and improvement in the fittings installation and installing of aluminum strips in the stabilizer to improve bonding, to prevent dissimilar corrosion. In this very interesting incident in 2012 in Henderson, Nevada, it was found that while attempting to comply with this airworthiness directive, the elevators were reinstalled, and yet the hardware was only installed finger tight. As a result, the left elevator began to loosen up on the aircraft, and the aircrew noted an unusual vibration in the aircraft as they were coming in to land, disregarded the vibration, took off again on their charter flight, and in this case, the left elevator departed the aircraft. The aircrew was able to safely come back around and land the aircraft with the remaining right elevator, noting that they had considerably less elevator to flare the aircraft. And this resulted in a long story about Avant Air and their subsequent bankruptcy and a whole bunch of other drama. But again, looking at this data, it does not appear to me that this aircraft suffered from a catastrophic airframe failure or flight control failure. The flight was proceeding normally, and they descended down here to 13 or 14,000 feet, and then began a descent from 13,000 feet, just a steady descent with this minor attempt to pull up very close to the water before the aircraft impacted the ocean, suggesting to me possibly some sort of pilot incapacitation. The airspeed is staying within limits of the airframe the whole time, and the rate of descent is not excessive, though it is 3,000 feet per minute. That low to the ground is not a good place to be, but it doesn't indicate to me complete loss of control of the aircraft due to some sort of structural or flight control failure. Rainer Schaller is the founder and CEO of the RSG Group, which owns European McFit fitness chain. And in 2020, Rainer was able to acquire Gold's Gym through bankruptcy during the pandemic. This Piaggio involved in this accident should be equipped with the very latest avionics, including a cockpit voice recorder and data recording capability on the sophisticated avionics on board the aircraft. If investigators can get that data, we should be able to get to the bottom of this high-profile accident. Thanks so much for your support of this channel, especially the folks over on Patreon that make this content possible. See you here.